China is a country with an authentic history that dates back to about 23 centuries before the birth of Christ, and it has often been referred to as the sleeping giant of Asia. But in modern times, it has been awakened with a political upheaval that has shattered her foundations to the breaking point.
When we look at the 60th anniversary of the Icebreaker mission, we remember that it took them 7 days to get to Hong Kong, 3 days to get from Hong Kong to Beijing, that poverty and disease was everywhere, the Chinese borders were unsafe, and the people had suffered terribly from the Japanese War and from civil war. It was a country which we would find it hard to imagine today existed. And these 18 people went to that country and signed trade agreements. And you have to ask yourself the question, why did they do it? What did they see? The British have a reputation for being sound, for being honest, for being reliable, and for knowing what they're doing, for being professional. If the Chinese were looking for the people in the Western world who were going to help them reopen their trade lines, nobody better than the British. They felt that they were listening to people who really were going to take China back. And most people discounted what they said. They said, you're living in a fool's paradise. China can never get out of where it is. China is stuck in the 19th, 18th, 17th century. But they were right. And why were they right? It's because they drew on the historical understanding of China that was vitally important. And secondly, what was vitally important was they listened to what was being said to them and analysed it in their own terms.
I remember when PRC was just founded in its infancy. And there was a very difficult time because of the geopolitical situation in those days. And this icebreaker had the guts and the vision to pave the way for the bilateral trade relations between UK and China. So it's a wonderful institution, and we appreciate very much what it has been doing all these years.
Well, I think the 48 Group's got a very good relationship, obviously, with China, but part of it is to do with the style of the work. As I've said, it's candid, it's trustworthy, it's honest, and it's positive. All of those are very important things. One of the things I was responsible for at the Foreign Office was what we called public diplomacy. What you don't want to do is to patronise people or misunderstand their objectives or misunderstand the way in which they think. So it's worth putting in a great deal of work around very practical things. The 48 Group has, of course, got a very practical history, so they add knowledge not just to the content but to the style.
The 48 Group, of course, which is British, but it's got 60 years of history, and with it, very importantly, an enormous amount of respect from the highest levels of Chinese thinking and policy. I've been at events with the 48 Group where top Chinese policymakers have been honoured to have been invited to events by the 48 Group, and there's not many people in the UK that are in that position, so I think it's quite special in that regard.
Sometimes I compare China to a comet. You know, a comet has a tail. If you don't understand the tail, you'll never understand the comet. And we understand the tail. We understand where these policies come from over 30, 40, 50, 60 years. When the Chinese talk to us, our understanding of where this comes from isn't just to look at it as of today, but to understand where it's come from and where it's going to.
So many British policymakers find it really tempting to just assume that our democracy is so fantastic that that's what everybody else in the world wants. And with it, we find it quite easy to lecture other parts of the world, China included, about how they should live their lives. If we want to do a lot of business with them, you just can't do that.
When we say icebreaker, we certainly refer to the past when we need somebody, some institution, to break the ice, to initiate a kind of bilateral relationship or multilateral relationship. But we should understand that the job will never be done because there are new ice congealed under some very tough conditions, and we will continue to break ice.
And really what's unfolding now in people's minds is this recognition that something incredible has happened in China in 30 years. They've transformed their country. They've moved 500-600 million people off the countryside into cities. They built the high-speed train faster than anybody in the world. They've got roads covering China that were never there. They are involved in the creation of a civilization that is absolutely unexpected. The Chinese are extremely good at research, experimentation, drawing conclusions and objectivity. And I think we have an unusual understanding of that process.
I think the 48 Group can play a huge role in influencing people's experiences and thinking of how to behave in terms of cultural exchanges, because 48 Group, having had 60 years of experience on the ground with senior people in China and taking people back and forth, obviously understands the complexities, I think, rather well, probably better than most, if not all, that I've come across. And I think they can play a unique and very helpful role in trying to help educate people in order to help themselves to do more business. And I think the 48 Group has got a huge role to play in that regard.